Harlem, 1943. A warehouse on Lenox Avenue. 20 black men standing at perfect military attention. Uniforms crisp, posture immaculate, backs straight, shoulders squared, eyes forward. The bearing of soldiers who've drilled 1,000 times. The discipline of men who know what military precision looks like. But look closer at what they're wearing. Half of them have discharge papers pinned to their chests. Not honorable discharges. Rejection notices. Official U.S. Army documentation explaining why these men were deemed unfit for military service. The reasons typed in official language: lack of discipline, unsuitable temperament, insufficient intelligence for military operations. The man inspecting them walks the line slowly, observing, evaluating. Not a military officer, not a general or a colonel. Bumpy Johnson, a convicted felon with a grade school education who spent years in federal prison. He sees what the Army couldn't. These rejected soldiers display more discipline in this warehouse than many accepted white soldiers show in official military units. Their formation is tighter, their focus sharper, their response to commands immediate and precise. Some of them have combat experience from previous conflicts, leadership abilities proven in civilian life, tactical knowledge from years of military study. All of it dismissed by Army recruitment boards who looked at skin color before capability. The contradiction is stunning. The U.S. military, facing the largest war in human history, rejected these men, said they lacked what it takes, turned them away while desperately needing bodies to fill ranks. And a crime boss recognized what generals refused to see. When America's military rejects your best, what does that say about the institution? When a gangster proves to be a better judge of talent than the Army, who really understands leadership? The answer isn't in the warehouse. It's in the system that made the warehouse necessary. In the next minute, you'll see how rejection was engineered, not discovered. December 7, 1941. Pearl Harbor. 1.2 million black men volunteer for military service in the weeks and months that follow. Ready to fight, ready to die for America. Hundreds of thousands are rejected, not for lack of physical fitness, not for lack of courage, for reasons never applied to white volunteers who could barely read or had criminal records longer than their arm. The Army General Classification Test was the weapon. Pseudo-scientific racism dressed in official language. Questions designed to fail black soldiers while appearing neutral. What do you know about country club etiquette, tennis scoring, classical music composers? Questions assuming white middle-class cultural knowledge that had nothing to do with combat capability. Black men who could field strip a rifle blindfolded failed tests about polo. The result was predetermined. The test was just justification. Army Regulation 210-10 made it explicit. Black soldiers limited to 10% of the force, regardless of qualification, regardless of need. A quota system that turned capability into a numbers game. When the 10% filled, qualified black volunteers were rejected while unqualified white volunteers were accepted. The policy created rejection assembly lines. Imagine this. You're a WW1 veteran. You served in France with the Harlem Hellfighters. You have combat experience, leadership knowledge, tactical training. You volunteer again. And a 22-year-old white recruitment officer tells you you're unfit for service. Men with college degrees rejected. Men who led crews in civilian life rejected. Men who'd already proven themselves under fire rejected. The crushing experience wasn't just rejection. It was the reasons given. Too intelligent to follow orders. Think about that. You're rejected for being too smart. The same week, they accept someone who can barely spell their own name, but with the right skin color. Too independent to accept discipline. Too aggressive. Or, wait, the next man is rejected for being too passive. Contradictory reasons revealing the arbitrary nature of the entire system. The psychological warfare was relentless. You stand in line for hours to volunteer. Behind you, a white man bragging about dodging the draft, complaining he was forced to come. You get rejected. He gets accepted. You see German POWs brought to American soil. They eat in restaurants you're barred from. They're treated with more dignity than you, an American citizen who volunteered to fight them. The economic desperation made rejection a death sentence. These men needed military pay to support families. The Depression hadn't ended for black communities. Manufacturing keys excluded black workers. Defense plants hired whites first, whites last. Military service was one of the few pathways to steady income. Rejection meant watching your children go hungry, watching your wife work herself to exhaustion, watching opportunity after opportunity close because your country decided you weren't worthy to die for it. That was the reality. Volunteering to sacrifice everything and being told you're not good enough to make the sacrifice. The question wasn't whether these men were capable. The question was whether America was capable of recognizing their capability. The Army answered no. And Bumpy Johnson was waiting for everyone the Army threw away. Bumpy Johnson understood rejection from the inside. Expelled from school as a child. Rejected from legitimate work throughout his life. Watched every door to respectability close in his face. Not because he lacked intelligence or ambition. Because the system was designed to exclude him. He didn't choose criminal enterprise. He was forced into it for survival. That experience gave him vision others lacked. When Bumpy looked at rejected soldiers, he saw exactly what the Army feared. Discipline. Intelligence. Independence. Tactical thinking. The Army rejected these men because accepting them would prove black capability, would challenge the racial hierarchy the entire system was built on. Bumpy saw opportunity where the Army saw threat. His pitch wasn't complicated. It was honest. The Army says you're not good enough to serve your country. I say, the Army isn't good enough to deserve you. Into that reframe changed everything. You weren't rejected because you failed. You were rejected because the system couldn't handle your success. The dignity difference was immediate and obvious. The Army made these men wait in segregated lines for hours. Processed them like cattle. Rejected them with form letters and dismissive attitudes. Bumpy interviewed each man individually. Sat down. Asked about military experience, skills, ambitions, what roles they'd held, what they wanted to achieve. Treated them like professionals, like their capabilities mattered. Imagine going from being told you're worthless to having someone ask seriously about your tactical knowledge. The psychological impact was profound. The meritocracy appeal was radical for 1943 America. In Bumpy's organization, advancement was based on competence, not complexion. Leadership positions were open to anyone who earned them through performance. A rejected soldier could become a lieutenant, a captain, a commander, based purely on capability. The Army would never allow that. Bumpy demanded it. That wasn't just economic opportunity. That was dignity restoration. These men could prove themselves in a structure that valued what they brought. Their tactical training, their leadership experience, their strategic thinking. All the capabilities the Army dismissed became the foundation for advancement. The community angle provided moral framing. Bumpy didn't pitch crime for crime's sake. He framed his operations as protecting Harlem, keeping Italian mafia from extracting all the neighborhood's wealth, maintaining black economic control in a system designed to prevent it. He gave rejected soldiers a mission, not the mission they wanted, fighting fascism overseas, but a mission that mattered to their community, protecting their own. That made the transition easier. You're still serving, just not the country that rejected you. The psychological reclamation was Bumpy's masterwork. He transformed rejection trauma into empowerment. They don't want you because you're too good, not too bad. Because accepting you means admitting you're equal. Because your competence threatens their worldview. Because they're afraid of what you can accomplish. That reframe took shame and turned it into pride. Took rejection and turned it into validation. The practical reality sealed the deal. Bumpy paid better than military service would have. Provided respect that society denied. Offered leadership roles the Army prohibited. These weren't abstract benefits. They were immediate material improvements. You could support your family. Today. Not with promises, but with cash. You could hold a position of authority. Not someday after the war, but now. You could exercise the leadership capabilities you'd trained for. Not in theory, but in practice. This was the perfect storm of circumstances. Unprecedented military need collided with rigid racial restrictions, creating a pool of qualified men rejected for nothing but skin color. Economic desperation met systematic employment discrimination, making survival require alternative pathways. Military training culture met criminal organization needs, creating perfect skill set transfer. Wounded dignity met Bumpy's respect, generating loyalty money alone couldn't buy. These men didn't choose crime over country. They chose dignity over humiliation, opportunity over starvation, recognition over rejection. The tragedy isn't that they made that choice. The tragedy is that America forced them to choose. This next part shows the difference between waiting for opportunity and engineering it. Bumpy didn't wait for rejected soldiers to find him. He hunted for them. His people watched recruitment centers, noted which men walked out with rejection papers instead of uniforms, followed them to bars near induction stations where they drank away the humiliation, tracked them to unemployment offices where they searched desperately for work that wouldn't come. The approach was systematic, targeted. The interview process wasn't typical gang recruitment. No pressure, no threats, formal meetings. Bumpy sitting across a table asking questions like a military officer evaluating candidates. What was your military experience? What leadership roles have you held? What specialized skills do you bring? The selection criteria were specific. Combat veterans preferred. Men who'd seen actual warfare, not just training. Men with military occupational specialties valued highly. Communications specialists who understood radio protocols. Logistics coordinators who knew supply chain management. Intelligence analysts who could gather and assess information. Leadership experience was essential. Bumpy needed commanders, not just soldiers. The vetting was thorough. Checking references within the black community. Verifying military service claims through networks of veterans. Ensuring loyalty and discretion. This wasn't about filling numbers. It was about building a professional force. The pitch evolved organically. Early recruits told friends still facing rejection. Created a network of rejected soldiers seeking an alternative where capabilities were valued, not dismissed. Word spread through veteran communities. Bumpy's looking for military men. Real jobs. Real respect. The honor appeal was the closing argument. Bumpy framed his organization as what the military should have been. Truly integrated. Actually meritocratic. Respecting black leadership not just in theory, but in practice. These men wanted to serve with honor. The Army denied them that chance. Bumpy offered a version of it, flawed, criminal, but real. What Bumpy built wasn't a gang. It was a paramilitary organization operating in civilian space. The chain of command replicated military hierarchy perfectly. Bumpy as commander. Rejected officers. Men who'd been officer candidates or led units in previous conflicts became his lieutenants. Rejected NCOs with squad leader experience became team leaders. Everyone knew their position. Everyone understood the structure. The rank system was formalized. Not street nicknames. Actual titles based on proven capability. Captains controlled territories with full operational authority. Sergeants led operational teams with tactical autonomy. Promotions earned through performance, not tenure or personal relationships. The training regimen maintained military standards. Morning formations. Physical conditioning. Tactical drills. These men had been told they lacked discipline. They proved otherwise daily. The discipline was voluntary. Criminal context meant no official requirement, which made it more impressive. They chose military bearing because that's who they were. The communication protocols adapted military radio procedures for street operations. Coded language systems. Frequency discipline. Scheduled check-ins. Information flowed up and down the chain of command with military precision. Orders clear. Reports timely. No confusion about who knew what. The operational planning showed their training. Missions weren't improvised. They were planned with military rigor. Reconnaissance conducted. Intelligence gathered and analyzed. Timing coordinated across multiple teams. Contingency plans developed for complications. After-action reviews held to improve future performance. This was doctrine applied. Military tactical planning transferred to urban operations. The logistics mastery transformed criminal enterprise. Supply chain management learned in military applied to policy banking and numbers running. Every operation tracked. Cash flows monitored. Inventory accounted for. The same systems that moved ammunition and rations across war zones now moved money and betting slips across Harlem. The intelligence network rivaled police capabilities. Former military intelligence specialists created surveillance systems, tracking police patrol patterns, monitoring rival organizations, identifying political threats, collecting, analyzing, and disseminating information with military intelligence protocols. The territorial control was military occupation adapted to urban environment. Harlem divided into sectors. Each sector assigned clear command responsibility. Overlapping fields of observation ensuring no gaps. Rapid response capabilities to reinforce threatened positions. Defensive depth that made penetration difficult. The discipline enforcement borrowed from military justice. Infractions brought formal proceedings. Evidence presented. Defense allowed. Punishments ranged from demotion to expulsion. Excellence was rewarded with advancement and responsibility. Clear standards maintained. Honor codes enforced. The innovation was synthesis. Combining military tactical doctrine with street-level intelligence. Traditional military organizations couldn't adapt quickly to fluid urban situations. Typical criminal operations lacked discipline and coordination. Bumpy's organization combined both strengths, military precision, with street flexibility. The competitive advantage was overwhelming. The Italian mafia relied on ethnic loyalty and intimidation, fear and family ties. Bumpy built his organization on military competence and tactical superiority, skill and structure. Rejected soldiers brought capabilities legal organizations couldn't match. Weapons expertise from actual combat. Strategic thinking from tactical training. Leadership abilities from commanding under pressure. Everything the Army said they lacked. They demonstrated daily. The greatest irony. They created an organization that operated with precision the military claimed black men couldn't achieve. Every successful operation was proof. Every disciplined formation was evidence. Every tactical victory was vindication. The Army's rejection wasn't about their capability. It was always about the system's racism. And in Harlem, under criminal cover, These rejected soldiers proved exactly what they'd always been capable of. You're about to see what D-Day looked like from the eyes of the men who were told they weren't good enough to fight. The setup, D-Day and after. Summer 1944. June 6, 1944. News reaches Harlem before dawn. Allied forces landing in Normandy. The invasion everyone's been waiting for. Black units in support roles, loading supplies, driving trucks, building infrastructure. Segregated. Secondary. But there, the rejected soldiers in Bumpy's organization respond with emotions they can't reconcile. Pride. Black soldiers proving themselves under fire, showing courage the army claimed they lacked. Bitterness. Should have been us. We volunteered first. We were ready. Guilt. We could be dying for something that matters instead of running numbers in Harlem. Letters start arriving. Brothers, cousins, childhood friends accepted by the army, writing from Europe, describing combat, the glory of serving the nation, the purpose of fighting fascism. Letters read and reread in Harlem apartments. The comparison cuts deep. Men rejected as unfit reading letters from soldiers they know are less capable. Men accepted because their skin was lighter. Because they had connections. Because the quota had room that week. Bumpy notices his best lieutenants distracted, conflicted, questioning choices they'd made peace with months ago. August 1944. One of Bumpy's top lieutenants receives a telegram. His name is Marcus. Rejected officer candidate. Tactical brilliance. Bumpy's most trusted planner. The telegram is from the War Department. His younger brother, lighter-skinned, accepted on first try, died at Omaha Beach. Killed in the initial landing. Marcus doesn't show up for formation. Bumpy finds him in an empty warehouse. My brother died for a country that wouldn't let me serve. Your Marcus's voice hollow. What am I dying for? Numbers, racket, territory? What does any of this mean? The loyalty crisis spreads through the organization. Other veterans asking the same questions. Does criminal life validate what the Army said about them? Or does it prove the Army wrong by showing their capabilities in a different context? Harlem itself is divided. Some residents see Bumpy's organization as necessary protection. Black men controlling black economy, keeping Italian mafia from extracting all the wealth. Others see it as moral failure, proof that rejection was deserved, that these men chose crime over perseverance. Some rejected soldiers consider reapplying to the military, accepting any rank, any role, anything to be part of the official war effort, to legitimize themselves, to be able to say they served their country, not a crime boss. Bumpy calls a meeting. All veteran lieutenants. Not an order. An invitation. 20 men gather. Silent. Waiting. Bumpy doesn't give orders. He acknowledges the pain. I know what you're feeling. Some of you are thinking about leaving. Trying again with the Army. I won't stop you. Silence. But understand what they did to you. The Army rejected you because accepting you would mean admitting you're equal. They can't win this war without black soldiers. But they can't admit they need you. So they take you in limited numbers, in limited roles, and call it generosity. Marcus speaks. At least they'd be dying for something real. Mum, you think protecting Harlem isn't real? Bumpy's voice quiet. You think keeping our community from being completely controlled by white power structures doesn't matter. I'm not asking you to choose between serving your country and serving Harlem. I'm asking you to recognize that serving Harlem is serving your people. Because your country won't. The reframe doesn't resolve the tension. It just names it. They rejected you, Bumpy continues. Not because you're not good enough. Because you're too good. Because your competence threatens everything they believe about race. Every operation you plan proves them wrong. Every formation you lead proves them liars. You can chase their validation, or you can build something they can't deny. The choice is individual, personal, impossible. Some men leave over the following weeks, reapply to the military, accept anything offered, need that validation, that official recognition, that ability to say they served. Most stay, not because the choice is easy, because both choices are terrible and staying lets them use their capabilities now, not beg for permission later. But all of them wrestle with the same question. What constitutes honor when the honorable path is closed? These aren't simple criminals. They're patriots rejected by their country, soldiers without a war, leaders without a legitimate outlet. The tragedy isn't that they lack competence. It's that they prove their competence in a criminal context because the legitimate context refused them. Marcus stays with Bumpy. His tactical planning becomes sharper, more precise. Every successful operation a vindication. Every proof of capability a middle finger to the army that said he wasn't worthy. But he keeps his brother's telegram, reads it sometimes, wonders what could have been if the country had wanted him as much as he wanted to serve it. The unresolved tension never leaves. Is building black power through crime betraying the race or protecting it? The answer depends on who you ask. And when. There are no good choices. Just choices that let you survive with dignity. Or the closest thing to dignity you can find when the dignified path is barred. Most of Bumpy's veteran lieutenants stayed through the war's end, building an organization that proved exactly the competence the Army denied existed. Every successful operation was evidence. Every disciplined formation was testimony. Every tactical victory was vindication. President Truman signs Executive Order 9981. Military integration begins. Decades too late for the men the Army rejected in 1942 and 1943. Too late for men who aged out, found alternative paths, built lives outside the system that excluded them. The community memory remains split. Some Harlem residents remember Bumpy's organization as protection, black men controlling black economy, providing jobs when legitimate employers wouldn't. Others remember the violence and exploitation it enabled. The gambling addiction, the territorial conflicts, the families broken. Both memories are true. Both legacies real. The statistical vindication arrives slowly. As the military integrates, black soldiers perform with distinction. The exact competence Bumpy's veterans had demonstrated in criminal context, now proven in military context. Same capabilities, same tactical thinking, same leadership abilities. The rejection was always about racism, never about ability. The personal cost can't be calculated. Men who could have been legitimate military leaders instead have criminal records, shortened lives from violence or incarceration, families scarred by consequences of choices these men were forced to make, potential wasted, talents criminalized. They proved their capability, but the proof came at a price their community paid. The cycle didn't end with WW2. It repeats every generation. Institutional exclusion creates alternative structures. Then, the system criminalizes those alternatives. The pattern is American history written in black experience. Jazz musicians created their own venues when white clubs excluded them, built an entire cultural movement outside mainstream institutions. Entrepreneurs created black business districts, Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Sweet Auburn in Atlanta, when white economy closed its doors. Activists created parallel political structures, NAACP, Black Panthers, community organizations, when official institutions rejected them. Talent finds outlets. When legitimate channels close, alternative channels open. Then America punishes people for using the alternatives its exclusion created. The modern resonance is devastating. Today's mass incarceration disproportionately affects black men with leadership capabilities. The same talent the Army rejected in 1943 now fills prisons. Organizational skills, strategic thinking, leadership abilities, all warehoused in a system designed to waste human potential. The systemic question demands answer. When institutions reject your best people, where do they go? They build something outside the system. And when they succeed outside the system, why are they punished for succeeding? Because their success reveals the system's failure. The military finally acknowledges historical discrimination. Modern Army admits WW2-era rejection policies were racist, but offers no restitution to men whose lives were altered by rejection. No apology can return stolen decades. No admission restores wasted potential. The legacy lives in unexpected places. Civil rights movement, Black power, community organizing, all built partly by men who learned leadership outside institutions that excluded them. Alternative structures trained the leaders official institutions rejected. Then those leaders changed America anyway. The enduring questions have no comfortable answers. Were rejected soldiers victims or agents? Both. Victimized by a system designed to exclude them. Agents in building alternatives that provided dignity the system denied. Was Bumpy a savior or exploiter? Both. Provided opportunity the system refused. But the opportunity was criminal, and crime has costs communities bear. Should we judge people for choices made when all legitimate options are closed? Judge the system that creates impossible choices, not individuals who navigate them with whatever dignity they can maintain. What talent has America wasted through institutional racism across generations? Incalculable. How many leaders, heroes, geniuses? How much potential criminalized because recognition was denied? A photograph never taken, but easily imagined. An elderly black man in a nursing home. 2000s. Military medals on his dresser. Not from official service but from wars he wasn't allowed to fight in official capacity. Newspaper clippings about Bumpy Johnson, yellowed with age. The caption never written, general in an army that couldn't exist, fighting a war his country wouldn't let him join. The question lingering. How many leaders has racism relegated to margins, forcing greatness into shadow because the light rejected them? Bumpy Johnson's rejected soldiers proved a truth America still struggles to acknowledge. The problem was never black capability. It was white institutions' refusal to recognize it. These men weren't made into leaders by a crime boss. They were always leaders whom the military refused to accept. Their tragedy isn't that they failed to reach their potential. It's that they reached it in a context that criminalized it, because legitimate contexts excluded them. The same tactical brilliance that would have won battles in Europe won territory in Harlem instead. The same leadership that could have earned military medals earned respect in a world where official recognition wasn't available. The same discipline the Army said they lacked, they demonstrated Helian formation outside legitimate structures. They didn't become what the system said they were. They became what they always could have been. Just in the only space where black excellence was permitted to flourish outside the system entirely. That's not their failure. That's America's. And the cycle continues. Today, right now, talented people excluded from legitimate institutions, building alternatives, being criminalized for succeeding outside approved channels. The question isn't why rejected soldiers joined Bumpy. The question is why America keeps creating conditions that make Bumpy necessary. Until that question is answered, the pattern repeats. Rejection, alternative structures, criminalization, wasted potential. The rejected soldiers proved what they always were, capable, disciplined, brilliant. America proved what it always was, too. Unwilling to see,